I want to know whose idea it was to put the vegan after the bacon lover. Like, what do I do? I have nothing. Tempeh makes bacon. No, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So with that, I want to start with one of my favorite prayers. It was a prayer a friend reminded me tonight at dinner. And it's a prayer straight from the text, the scriptures. And it is the prayer of the Centurion. So if you'll pray with me. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. It was fall. It was, I think, the fall of 2002. And I was walking along in the seminary commons hall, and a guy approached me. He was kind of doing the side eye, like, is anyone around? Is it safe to talk? And I was a little concerned because, didn't quite know what was happening. I'd seen him around. He wasn't one of my students. He wasn't a youth ministry student. But he came and approached me and asked if we could talk. Of course, sure, we could talk. And he said, I heard I could talk to you about this. I said, okay, not really knowing what was going to come next. And he said, I feel like I am Truman from the movie The Truman Show. I feel like I'm in that last scene where he's at the end of the set. And if you've never seen The Truman Show is about a child who was adopted by a corporation, and his whole entire life was filmed and scripted. Entire life. And at one point, he starts to realize that life is not quite what he thinks it is. His reality is not quite what he thinks it is supposed to be. And at this point, at the final scene of the movie, he realizes that what he thought to be true, what he thought to be real, was not as real as he once believed. And this guy looks at me, and he was right. He could talk to me. Because I had had those same experiences. I remember before I was a junior in high school, sitting with my brother's dog, Maverick, thinking my way through Pascal's wager. You know what? If I died tonight and I lived my life like this, and that's all, I'd be proud of it. I remember that time in college asking my mentor, why did we worship in a certain way when it doesn't seem like that's what the scriptures, how the scriptures told us to worship? And her answer was just not satisfactory to me. I remember that quarter-life crisis when I was in seminary, when life just didn't seem to make sense anymore, when I felt so alone. When I found my first spiritual director, who introduced me to the likes of St. John of the Cross and the Dark Night of the Soul, and his poetry that talked about doubt, and Teresa of Avila that spoke of the nearness and the absence of God. And those were new concepts to me. So yeah, he could talk to me. And perhaps you too have had similar experiences, maybe on that scale or on other scales. Do we have the clicker? No. Okay, slides, didn't know. Okay, so Lynn Kegler from Nyack College did some research, and he found that one of the top 3 reasons that people leave youth ministry, both in the UK and in the States, is because of spiritual dryness. Folks, we are not alone. This kind of dryness, this kind of doubt, this kind of, I don't quite know what reality is anymore, it exists in many of us. You see, I think generally speaking, people are on some kind of continuum. We have people over here that are very trusting, and we have people maybe over here who are pretty skeptical. And generally speaking, on continuums, because they fall apart at some point, we all generally are somewhere in the middle. We all have parts of us that are skeptical and parts of us that trust very easily. So what do we do when we have these doubts? How do we dance with them? How do we minister with integrity when we face these kinds of doubts? You know, I can get up here and twerk for you, right? Like that would not have any kind of integrity. Like if I tried a bad Roger Rabbit from the 80s, that would have more integrity. So how do we minister with integrity in the midst of our doubt? I want to propose that I think the main thing we need to do is redefine our concept of doubt. We are not alone, folks. We come from a long line of doubters. You have Peter. You have the psalmist. Why? How long, O Lord? You have poor Thomas, that really the only thing people remember is that he doubted. He's got to be more dimensional than that. He just has to be. But here's the crazy thing. Seriously, y'all, listen to this. Peter and Thomas, they didn't get rejected when they doubted. They weren't out when they doubted. Have you ever thought about this? Matthew 28 in the text. Jesus has resurrected. He's on the mount somewhere. The disciples are there. The text says in Matthew 28 that they all worshiped him. And the next line, but some doubted. What comes after that? Jesus says, okay, those of you over there that are with me, okay, hold on, I'm going to give you the commission in a minute. Those of you who doubted, see ya. No, he doesn't. Doubting does not disqualify you from ministry. And I think I need to say that again. Doubting does not disqualify you from ministry. And doubting does not disqualify you from ministry. Okay. No, seriously, because I think that somewhere along the line, I picked up that I should not doubt as a minister. Somewhere along the line, whether it was implicit or explicit, where someone told me or I picked it up somewhere, I picked it up that it was a very bad thing for me to doubt. And so I have to ask the question, is doubt really the opposite of faith? Or is the opposite of faith maybe something like certitude? If you're certain about everything, you don't need any faith. I think we have to ask the question, what are we doubting? Did someone betray your trust in the community? And all of a sudden you're doubting the community? Well, if so, doesn't doubt start the healing process? Doesn't doubt and at least acknowledging the pain start the process of perhaps rebuilding that relationship? Or are you doubting your construct of God that needs to be doubted? That's not complete. That needs to be adjusted here and there. What are you doubting? Educational theorists say that learning happens when we question our assumptions. Learning happens when we question our assumptions. Now go with me for a little bit. So one of the examples I tend to use with this is by saying, you know, when you're in second grade and you think you're hot stuff because you can add 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, right? Because you could just skip count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you're with me, right? Okay. And then some know-it-all fourth grader comes along and says, well, I can add 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 faster than you. And you're like, no, you can't. And you're like, yes, you can. And they're like 60. And you're like, oh. You know? And their experience causes you to doubt that adding or skip counting is the most effective way to learn something. And so that doubt becomes a catalyst to learn something new. Now, if we as followers of Jesus are about learning this life with God, if we're about growth or maturity or formation or Christian discipleship or whatever label you want to put it on it today, if that's what we're about, then we have to be okay with doubt. at least of educational theorists, right? Which sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. We have to be okay with questioning our assumptions, allowing space for doubt to occur. I would posit that doubt, at its best, is a catalyst for growth and change. Doubt, at its best, is a catalyst for growth and change. Now, I'll also say this. Can doubt lead to the rejection of faith? Yes, it can. We've put this label that is so dangerous, though, that I think sometimes we miss out on maturity. We miss out on growth because we're so scared. Now, for us as ministers, we need to redefine what doubt is. We need to shift to recognize that doubt, at its best, can allow us some pretty incredible growth. And when we experience doubt, we need to find those safe places. Sometimes they're our virtual community that we've gathered together around us. Other times they might be spiritual directors or mentors. Most of the time, they are not our youth, please, and they are not in our churches. They are not your senior pastor. They are not places that hold your purse strings. Those are not safe places. We need to find and cultivate safe places for ourselves to doubt, ourselves to ask those difficult questions. And then we need to turn around, much like my friend the bacon lover, and we need to cultivate these safe places for our youth so that they can risk, so that they can question, so that when they grow up and they have these questions, when they doubt, it's not scary. They have people alongside them that they've learned about along the way. They've learned, too, that doubt does not disqualify them from ministry, but rather can become a catalyst for growth and change. So may we be people that create those spaces. May we be people that are okay with doubt. And may we be people that pray that prayer with the centurion. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Thank you.